that Justin Baldoni is harassing her. She was playing the young version of Blake. Isabela, I don't understand what you're doing here and throwing and just supporting this Justin's her harasser narrative, and now you're doubling down? This is such a bad move.
Did Isabela Ferrer really lie in court? Or is this simply another case of Hollywood manipulation? The records reveal her sending Justin Baldoni positive messages, praising him as a safe and great director. Yet Blake Lively's team is now portraying her as being involved in wrongdoing. So, how does it shift from him, making her feel secure, to her opposing him? That's the twist no one saw coming. And in just a moment, I'll reveal the very document that completely changes the story.
Just do the right thing and tell what happened. At this point, you've now aggravated the fan base that you're afraid of. And I can see why you might be afraid of, because no one's going to believe you. And there is a part of me that's like, I hope nothing did happen, because no one's going to believe you. And I see that problem. That's why I think she's in a possible situation. There are so many people in this Justice for Justin camp, they're not going to believe even if something went bad. Now, I don't think anything went bad. I don't think it's possible anything went bad that was so deemed of all this to blow up the way it did. But there is a version of this where she may have actually, looked back and go, you know what? I wish he hadn't have said that. Or, I didn't like that. Does that mean she wanted to, drag this into the lawsuit like Blake did? Hell no. So I can see why she might be conflicted, potentially. But did you tell Justin you were uncomfortable? That's the other problem. Just like Blake didn't mention it during the dance sequence, if she really was. Communication is key. And the reality is, in my opinion, I don't understand what could have happened to warrant what this is blown up to. And for that reason alone, Isabela, I don't understand what you're doing here and throwing and just supporting this Justin's her harasser narrative, and now you're doubling down? This is such a bad...
What if the very first piece of evidence everyone dismissed turns out to be the sharpest weapon in the case? There are cheerful, almost glowing texts from Isabela Ferrer to Justin Baldoni, filled with compliments that make him sound like one of Hollywood's safest and most considerate directors. She calls him thoughtful, intelligent, and supportive in ways most actors would be thrilled to hear from a colleague. In an industry where every word is scrutinized, these messages initially seemed harmless, but the more they resurface, the more they undercut Blake Lively's own filings, which portray Ferrer as someone who never trusted him and felt pressured under his direction. Two conflicting stories coming from the same people can't both stand without one collapsing. That contradiction is exactly why these texts feel explosive to Blake's case. Imagine your own cheerful words being read aloud while your legal team claims you resisted someone's behavior. Those warm, casual messages about how comfortable he made you feel don't exactly match a narrative of fear or manipulation. The tone doesn't fit. If you were scared or controlled, would your phone show lighthearted appreciation or cold, tense, and distant replies? That's why these texts cut deeper than many expected. They don't just fail to back Blake's version, they actively challenge it. But maybe this isn't as clear-cut as it seems. Hollywood thrives on politeness, especially for rising stars like Ferrer, who often play nice to stay in everyone's good graces. Sending flattering messages doesn't always equal genuine comfort. It could be a form of survival, like forcing a polite smile at a party you want to leave. The problem arises when those polite gestures become evidence in a legal battle and the line between sincerity and self-preservation blurs. Many celebrity disputes have unraveled when private texts clashed with carefully built legal narratives. So, was Ferrer truly comfortable with Baldoni, or was she simply playing along to protect her career? Did she mislead the court by allowing her name to be used one way while her own words told the opposite story? Or was she caught up in a fight far bigger than she ever agreed to? These questions now hover over every screenshot, and the more you examine them, the harder it becomes to align them with the tidy version in the legal documents. And the most striking part, this might only be the beginning. If these glowing messages are already undermining the narrative, just wait until the odd mistake inside Blake's own filings comes to light. A mistake that may reveal how much her team has been steering this story from the start.
She was playing the young version of Blake. They were all over each other during the promotion. They were doing slumber parties. Suddenly Taylor Swift was meeting Taylor and basically getting love bombed, it seemed, by Blake and Ryan. And honestly, I could see why Isabela chose them, because they're a big, powerful couple. Honestly, they could have destroyed her career if they wanted to, as they're starting to prove, right? So Isabela chose the big, fancy couple, and sadly, seemingly shunned Justin, which is what he alleged, and it's also in this thing. And so that's why Justin wanted to subpoena her to get these text messages and figure out, did you ever complain? Were you told to shun me? What kind of stuff might there be? And the only thing we've seen is his response to Blake's inappropriate allegations, where Isabela said, you are a wonderful, smart, sincere director who created such a comfortable, safe space for me. I feel like I could step into this role. I couldn't have asked for a more welcoming environment. And he said, oh my gosh, thank you. You were a pleasure. This is what we have to base it off of, though. Now, this text exchange was brought in by Justin. That's true.
Here's where things shift from strange to downright puzzling. In one of Blake Lively's legal filings, a reference appeared that made no sense. It named the Wayfair team instead of Justin Baldoni or his team. Yes, Wayfair, the furniture company. As soon as people caught it, the reaction was immediate. How does a high-profile Hollywood case accidentally drop the name of an online retailer instead of the actual party involved? For a legal team as seasoned as Blake's, it was such an obvious blunder that speculation started right away. Sure, typos happen. Lawyers work long hours and documents can blur together, but this odd wording didn't just look careless. It looked deliberate, almost like a clue revealing who was actually crafting the narrative. Was the filing truly prepared by the legal team, or had it been tweaked by Blake's PR handlers before it ever reached court? Social media lit up with theories, many pointing out that the language read more like a press release than a courtroom document. There's history behind this. 2. Hollywood disputes often leave behind traces in legal filings, where wording feels more like a tabloid headline than a legal argument, and those phrases rarely turn out to be accidents. They tend to be markers left by publicists shaping how the story plays out in the media. That's exactly how people interpreted the Wayfair slip. If Blake's team really influenced that document, it means the strategy wasn't just legal, it was narrative building disguised as evidence. That's why this small error matters. What should have been a minor mistake turned into its own piece of evidence, one that pointed back at Blake's side instead of Baldoni's. It was like catching someone taking a selfie while accusing others of being self-absorbed, or like leaking your own texts while trying to prove you were ghosted. The act of controlling the story became visible in real time, and outsiders started to see the cracks. So, what began as a strange typo started to look like a calculated move that backfired. And Baldoni didn't just ignore it. He fired back, using a subpoena that could uncover even more behind-the-scenes maneuvering.
Now, Isabela's lawyers are trying to paint that more nefariously. They're saying but at this point, they're calling it the Baldoni team, even though it's the Wayfair team. They're doing that on purpose. There's so many fingerprints here from Blake Lively. It's so obvious from my perspective. Ron's as well, and others I'm going to show you. But this is seemingly written by Blake's team because it's so anti-Justin in a way. That's just we've never heard this from her. And at first when I read this, I was kind of like, well, wait, what does this mean? But let's break down some of the problems that Isabela's now going to face. Because look, she's trying to make it clear that now, not then, Baldoni has tried to manipulate, threaten, control, and otherwise act inappropriately towards Miss Ferrer. Because of the subpoena? Because of the subpoena and because of an indemnification clause, which we're going to get to in a second. But this is absolutely bonkers. Now, as we get to this, I want to throw this first point in too. She makes it clear, look, I was on this film for 4 days. I didn't get paid a lot. I wasn't involved with a lot of this, but now I'm being pulled in by Baldoni. Well, you actually were pulled in by Blake. Let's just make sure that's correct. I'm going to correct it every time. The complaint that Baldoni filed in response to Lively, not against her, in response to Lively, makes 4 direct references, including a few text messages. Some, not surprisingly, some of the text messages she sent to Baldoni were very positive. Why is that not surprising? Because he's a good guy. Included the types of comments one would expect from a young actress to make to the director and producer of her first feature film. So this is typical for her to lie? Is that what you're saying? And all actresses lie? I don't know, man. If I didn't have a safe time on a set, I don't think I would want to text that director how safe of an experience I had. Now, I may say, thanks so much for the experience. I had a great time. I might do something like that, but to be so specific here.
Why would Justin Baldoni push so hard to get more of Isabela Ferrer's texts if the ones already public painted him as supportive, safe, even admired? That's the question people started asking after news of his subpoena surfaced. A subpoena isn't casual. It's not a polite request. It's a binding legal order demanding specific materials. In this case, it meant Ferrer's private communications. Suddenly, that handful of glowing texts wasn't enough. Baldoni wanted everything. Every exchange, every possible detail hidden in her phone. On the surface, it looked like a direct counterstrike against Blake Lively's carefully crafted narrative. If Ferrer's filings portrayed her as unsure or pressured, revealing her full text history in court could tear that portrayal apart. It's one thing to showcase a few flattering lines. It's another to reveal the full, unedited record to a judge. And subpoenas rarely stay limited to just two people. They pull in anyone connected by calls or messages, turning private conversations into potential public evidence. For Ferrer, that's a nightmare. Compliance isn't optional. Ignoring a subpoena can mean contempt of court, fines, sanctions, or even being forced to testify under oath. For a rising actress, that kind of legal and public pressure is terrifying. Refusing to hand over documents doesn't just anger a court. It risks painting you as uncooperative before casting directors or producers even know the full story. Once you're seen as secretive or difficult, opportunities dry up fast in an industry driven by reputation. So, she's in a tight spot. If she fully cooperates, those texts might reveal she wasn't completely truthful about how comfortable she felt, or worse, that she was being influenced or coached by someone else's team. If she resists, she risks looking like she's protecting Blake and Ryan's circle, which could brand her as complicit in a much larger feud. Either way, Ferrer is caught in someone else's high-stakes narrative, and that's where the real speculation heats up. What if Baldoni believes those unreleased messages don't just paint him positively, but also reveal pressure from Blake's side to stick to one version of events? In that case, this subpoena isn't just self-defense. It's a weapon to expose manipulation and force Blake's team into a corner. Instead of vague filings feeding the press, it could lead to first-hand proof of whether Ferrer was influenced, intimidated, or genuinely conflicted. The subpoena, then, becomes less about procedure and more about a calculated strike, a tool to break apart the storyline Blake's side has been trying to hold together. But when legal strategies get this aggressive, there's almost always another hidden layer, the kind of behind-the-scenes legal maneuvering that shifts timelines, slows momentum, and reshapes perception long before the truth ever sees daylight.
Use these texts to craft a narrative that Miss Ferrer spent substantial time with Lively during the promotion, and that she felt compelled to shun Baldoni in repudiation of her warm words. The complaint made no other allegations that directly referenced her. Well, that's enough, though. There's enough allegations here, and Blake has subpoenaed you. So, technically, why don't you just reply to the subpoena? Why didn't she just reply to the subpoena? That's the big question here. It's very strange that she didn't just, respond to the subpoena. Well, the reason she didn't respond to the subpoena is because of an indemnity clause. Now, this indemnity clause is part of her contract agreement. This provision basically says, all expenses should be covered, reasonable otherwise, suffered or incurred by the artist arising in connection with the development, production, or exportation of the picture, and all ancillary rights related to there. So therefore, she's saying, well, you got to pay for all my legal bills. But here's the problem. First of all, what Justin then responded was like, well, no, I'm not just going to do that because that's not how it works. If you do that, then yeah, Wayfair is going to represent you because that's our plan is going to do that. And then when she's like, well, whoa, I don't want Wayfair to represent me, fine. They then found some sort of mediator to try to negotiate, okay, well, what would be covered then if you're doing this on your own? Because it might not be covered if you're not going to then come onto our our lawyers, our insurance, and our lawyers' plan, is the gist of what's happening here. And she was like, well, no, that's unreasonable. I can't do that.
Could a small contract clause really be the weapon keeping this entire case on hold? That's exactly what people are whispering after Ferrer's team suddenly leaned on an indemnity clause to stall things. At first glance, it sounds harmless, standard boilerplate language you find in almost every contract. But once it was used as a reason to pause legal action, everything shifted. Indemnity, at its core, is about protecting someone from legal or financial fallout tied to the work they were hired to do. For example, if a production goes wrong or lawsuits pop up, that clause is meant to keep the talent from paying for mistakes they didn't cause. That's the usual purpose. The twist here? Ferrer isn't being sued. She's a witness. So how does that clause even apply to her? That's where the pushback began. Legal experts argue indemnity clauses don't normally cover third-party witnesses. They protect contracted obligations, not courtroom testimony. So when Ferrer's side invoked it, critics claimed it wasn't about protection at all. It was a stalling tactic, keeping her in a kind of legal freeze. And who gains the most from that delay? Blake. Every extra week without damaging evidence entering the public record gives her team more time to refine their story and shape the press narrative. Or, at least, that's what the critics say. The accusations of delay tactics exploded the moment this clause came into play. People online called it classic Hollywood maneuvering, make it look legally complex, so the standstill feels justified. Drag things out, let public attention drift, wait for scandal fatigue to set in, and reputations begin to recover. It isn't necessarily about winning in court. It's about surviving the news cycle. But here's the sharper twist. The move reflects a classic Darvo tactic: deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. Blake's side casts Ferrer not as someone pressured or caught in the middle, but as manipulative, painting her actions as the problem. Suddenly, the witness the public thought was vulnerable is recast as the aggressor, while the A-list sidesteps into the victim role. It's a neat inversion hidden inside contract language. And this isn't the first time we've seen it. Other cases have shown how clauses meant to protect can be used as smokescreens, stalling, distracting, confusing. By the time judges slice through that noise, the public has often moved on. That's why observers watching this case believe the indemnity angle isn't about fairness at all. It's about controlling the timeline, just long enough for power and perception to shift. And the longer this drags, the more Ferrer is left stuck in the shadow of Hollywood players who know exactly how to turn paperwork into a weapon.
Well, the same things Blake asked for in her subpoena are the same things Justin asked for. It's very commutative, duplicate of the past, needing this overlap of categories, blah, 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 is, proving that it's all to harass Miss Ferrer. Like, come on. What? This is to harass you? You're losing me, Isabela. I've been on your side for a while, but your lawyers are not doing the right thing here. If you were subpoenaed by Blake, and you're then therefore willing and ready to give it, why wouldn't you give those same things to Justin as well? What? Why? He has every right. Instead, it sure seems like you are trying to stall, evade, yada yada. There's a whole part in this about they sent to the wrong 2 addresses and blah blah blah. It's absolute nonsense. Just respond. Your lawyer can respond. Why aren't you responding? It makes no damn sense.
It's got me fired. Discovery in this case, when they are subpoenaing content creators that they've never met simply because they have anti-Blake Lively stuff, just pisses me the fuck off. And I don't know who these Isabela Ferrer attorneys are, but I am not impressed at all. This document is meant to confuse, it is meant to conflate, it is meant to accuse, and it is like, it probably would have been easier for people to accept it if they had been written and filed 4 months ago, when it was like, oh my God, everything they're doing is so bad, and it's Darvo and all that, which is another basic thing that they say in here. I'm not buying it now. I'm not buying it. And I'm not buying it because I know that the things that they're saying, while they might sound smart to people who don't know any better, are not smart at all.
And that she's a lawyer, just so we're clear. She's a lawyer. And all this, these are the things that are being requested by Blake. Okay, so give them to Justin. What's the problem here? I don't get it. And there's all these emails. Oh, well, they keep asking us that we won't get the indemnification unless we send over. It never actually says that. He just, various emails here, like, will you accept the provision? Are you going to accept it? Why are you not giving us the subpoena? Why are you not refusing to accept it? Oh, and there's some bad press. Like, she barely got any press. No one knows who she is. And then here are the mean words. Now, whoever's texting anybody in this case, stop. There's a fan who's out there trying to, like, please get, unless you're actively in this case or being subpoenaed, get away and don't bother people. It's not helping. It only hurts the cause, in my opinion. And anybody who's sending these, you look dumb. You look dumb. Whether you're right or I agree with it, doesn't matter. Leave people alone. Now they're going to be used against you. Now, all that said, it's not even that bad. You suck, bish. I mean, you shouldn't say that, but a lot of this is like, just tell the truth. Stop dodging the subpoena and tell the truth. You're going to lose your audience. Now it's obvious you're going to rate you. Now this isn't nice. You fake ass crackhead. I don't support this kind of stuff at all. Why are you running away? Face the consequences of your actions. Blake and Ryan will take you down with them. Do the honorable thing. Tell the truth. I mean, he's allowed to send this. You're a celebrity now. I get way worse than this. I've gotten way worse because of Blake's subpoena.
What happens when a rising actress gets caught in the crossfire between two of Hollywood's most powerful forces? That's exactly where Isabela Ferrer has landed. On one side stand Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, a powerhouse duo whose influence reaches far beyond acting. They run production companies, lock down multi-industry brand deals, and maintain friendships with decision-makers who can make or break careers. On the other side is Justin Baldoni, a figure known for blending his creative reach with a personal philosophy that's expanded his pull in the industry. For Ferrer, whose career is still fragile, being wedged between them is like trying to walk a tightrope during a hurricane. Does she even have a real choice here? If she pushes back against Blake's version of events, does she risk losing favor with one of Hollywood's golden couples? History says yes, many careers have stalled, not from lack of talent, but from crossing the wrong names at the wrong time. In this world, even a hint of bad perception can freeze opportunities overnight. For someone like Ferrer, saying no to either side could cost her future work. Meanwhile, the story being fed to the public isn't built in a courtroom alone. PR teams script it, sometimes word for word, blending legal language with press-ready spin. That's why Ferrer's part in the filings doesn't look like neutral testimony anymore. It looks staged. Fans fuel the fire, too. Some call her a pawn of Blake's camp, too loyal or too fearful to step away. Others paint her as disloyal, asking why she'd ever defend Baldoni if there was even a whisper of wrongdoing. Neither view treats her as a full human being. She's reduced to whichever label best fits someone's fandom. And this isn't new. Plenty of rising stars have watched their momentum crumble after colliding with Hollywood elites. Projects vanish, endorsements evaporate, calls go unanswered. Influence shapes survival. And people like Ferrer often end up forced to play along, praying they don't misstep in a battle they never chose. No matter what she does, stand firm, resist, or quietly comply. Her name is now locked to this scandal. She's a piece on a chessboard where others are calling the moves. And the deeper truth, this isn't just about one witness or one filing anymore. It's about how power, PR spin, and carefully worded documents twist reality until no one can tell what's authentic. That's how these sagas drag on endlessly. They're engineered to blur the lines. So before you pick a side or attack someone online, pause. Blind loyalty and mob outrage only serve the people pulling the strings. Stay skeptical, ask who benefits, and watch for the cracks. Because if this case has shown anything, it's that there are more layers yet to come. Keep your eyes open, share your thoughts, and be ready for the next turn.